Monty Python's meaning of laugh.
I'm going down to the basement 'cause I got some time that's free.
Spoof movie, summer.
I want some good belly laughs, but I really don't wanna think.
Spoof movie, summer.
We had fun until cancel culture took them away.
Michael Palin, Graham Chapman, Eric Idle, John Cleese, Terry Jones, and Terry Gilliam are Monty Python. Their TV sketch comedy show lasted for only 45 episodes between the years of 1969 and 1974. The show, winning 3 BAFTA awards along the way, cemented the troupe as arguably the greatest comedy group of all time. But as great as the show is, I am here today to focus on their 3 narrative feature films. I still vividly remember as a child my dad saying, "Hey, you should watch this movie I'm watching." And I glanced at the TV and all I saw was God speaking and knights and castles and stuff like this. And I literally said out loud, and I remember this very vividly, like I said, "I don't want to watch some stupid Jesus movie." But luckily I gave in and I sat and watched it. And moments later, there was a bunny rabbit flying across the screen, biting people's heads off. If it isn't obvious already, that film was Monty Python and the Holy Grail. The film was released in 1975 and made for a budget of only about £230,000. Much of that budget was donated by famous rock bands who were fans of the show, including Pink Floyd, Led Zeppelin, and Genesis. If any of you have not seen the film, the gist of the story is King Arthur and his Knights of the Round Table are on a quest to seek the Holy Grail and run into silly obstacles along the way. While the entire comedy troupe, who I mentioned before, wrote the film together, there was a little bit of a hassle on who would direct the film, and luckily some of them weren't interested, so a rule was made where anyone named Terry gets to direct. So Terry Gilliam and Terry Jones are the credited co-directors of Holy Grail. The movie is filled with ridiculous, memorable moments like the Black Knight fight, the snooty Frenchman, the Trojan rabbit, among dozens and dozens of others. The film has since remained a comedy classic beloved by generations, and the film is the perfect translation of their silly sketch-style comedy translated into a narrative feature, and I thank science every day that I sat down and watched that stupid Jesus movie with my dad about 30 years ago now. Blessed are the cheese makers. Monty Python's Life of Brian was released in 1979. Written by and of course starring all of the Monty Python troupe, this film was directed solely by Terry Jones, and the gist of the plot revolved around Brian of Nazareth, who was born at the same time and a similar place as Jesus Christ, being constantly mixed up for the Messiah himself. The budget for this film was $4 million, which was initially going to be produced through a production company that backed out at the last minute because they found the script to be blasphemous. I don't know what you'd expect from a movie like this, but luckily, the Beatle, George Harrison himself, created a production company and gave them the $4 million by selling off property and pawning his own house and things of that nature to get the film made. Eric Idle always referred to it as being the most expensive movie ticket ever purchased because George Harrison just wanted to see another Monty Python movie and he thought he'd never get the chance. Obviously poking fun at Christianity, all different sorts of Christian faiths protest the film upon release, which caused Michael Palin to say a hilarious thing, in my opinion, that it brought together all the religious faiths of Christianity for the first time in 2,000 years. The Monty Python troupe often referred to this film as their peak in their writing skills and filmmaking skills. It is the most narratively structured, coherent plot line of all of their films, but it personally has never been my favorite, although I do love it, obviously. The film is actually part of the Criterion Collection, spine number 61. I have a later released 2-disc DVD version of it here. Good old Last Supper. Yeah, it's an old DVD. It's never been re-released by Criterion on Blu-ray. Hopefully that happens someday. Please, Brian. But whether you're watching it on a Criterion DVD, streaming it somewhere, or watching my slightly better DVD version, or even the standard Blu-ray, the film always teaches us to look on the bright side of life. 1983 brought us Monty Python's final feature film, Monty Python's Meaning of Life. Directed again by Terry Jones, but preceded this time by a brilliant short film, The Crimson Permanent Assurance, directed by Terry Gilliam. The concept of the film overall is all of the sequences of life told through the eyes of Monty Python. So this film is not so much a narrative feature as much as it is a sketch film where each phase of life is told, telling a different little story about that phase of life with different characters, and all the Monty Python actors playing upwards of 40 characters throughout the film. The comedy troupe always felt this was their weakest of their films. I personally thought that the first time I watched it, but since watching it several times since, it has actually grown on me, and I freaking love this movie. Like all their other films or their sketches that came before it, the movie has many memorable scenes, most infamously probably being the Mr. Creosote sequence. But beyond that, this film has a seemingly underrated soundtrack of original songs, including the BAFTA-nominated Every Sperm is Sacred song, which is one of the funniest sequences in the film, and apparently took up most of its $9 million budget, but the director, Terry Jones, like I said, didn't tell anyone that until after the film was finished. And just recently, the film was announced to get a 4K Blu-ray release from Universal. I cannot wait for that. It's coming this fall. I can get rid of this crappy old 20-plus-year-old DVD copy of it. I understand why people don't prefer this film to the other two, because the sketch-style format makes it not have quite the same narrative structure, so you don't get to know and love the same characters throughout the movie. I personally think from a production quality standpoint, this is their best-looking film, which makes sense considering it cost over twice as much as their previous film. But to me, it seems appropriate that they would end their group film career with a sketch comedy movie, considering it started as a sketch comedy show over 50 years ago. While they were making these films, and mostly afterwards, all 6 of the Monty Python members went on to have great solo careers as well, 2 of which became Academy Award nominees for their original screenplays. John Cleese was nominated for A Fish Called Wanda, and Terry Gilliam, who is a Minnesota boy, I might add, which is weird when you think about it if you didn't know that. He is not British. He is from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So that is neat. He was nominated for his original screenplay for the visual masterpiece Brazil. Eric Idle went on to adapt Holy Grail into the musical Spamalot on Broadway, winning the Best Musical Tony Award for himself. And I really need to see that play. I still haven't. It never comes here, as far as I know. But the original cast, I remember, was outstanding. It had Tim Curry, Hank Azaria, and David Hyde Pierce, from the top of my head, I remember, among other members. Michael Palin wrote and acted in many feature films and television shows through the years, but his biggest honor was probably winning the BAFTA award himself for Best Supporting Actor for A Fish Called Wanda, which he starred in with his co-star John Cleese. Oddly enough, he wasn't nominated at the Oscars, but Kevin Kline, for the same film, ended up winning Best Supporting Actor at the Oscars. Terry Jones went on to have a long directing, producing, writing, and acting career. He did a little bit of everything. His final film was in 2015, which was entitled Absolutely Everything, and it starred Simon Pegg. I've never seen the film, but I was looking at it today, and I kind of want to look into it now. Sadly, Terry Jones passed away on January 21st of 2020 after a long battle with dementia. Graham Chapman's career, on the other hand, was tragically cut short at the age of 48 years old on October 4th, 1989. Graham sadly suffered a stroke while battling throat and spine cancer for a few years. One of my favorite Monty Python moments never happened in any of the movies or the show, but it was in 1998 when they did a Monty Python Live in Aspen reunion special, which I believe aired on HBO. And the surviving members, which was everyone but Graham Chapman at this point, just did a big, long stage interview mostly. And they brought Graham Chapman's ashes with a picture of his face like taped in front of it so the audience could see in front of them. And they just went on like any old interview talk show, telling stories and jokes. And about halfway through the interview, Terry Gilliam crossed his legs and accidentally knocked over Graham Chapman's ashes all over the place and like freaked out, and they acted like it was a huge accident. I thought it was brilliant. I just love that even like a decade after his death, Graham Chapman was still in on the joke, because true comedy is timeless. It transcends life or death. These films and this show will be funny generations from now, long after I'm dead and all my organs have been harvested out for science. I just hope they wait until I'm dead to do that. My name is Derek, the Convicted Cinephile. I hope you've enjoyed hashtag Spoof Movie Summer. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.
Talk, shop, pop, movies.